So imposter syndrome, and this was a request from other people in the community. And first, has anyone experienced imposter syndrome besides me? Anyone else had that with ADHD? Right, like all of us. And being a coach for 7 years, right, over 10,000 one-on-one calls, and I coach people without ADHD. Everyone has it, especially if you're learning based or a high achiever, or just growth based, right? You don't have a fixed mindset. So it's really common to have imposter syndrome. And when you add ADHD in the mix, it turns the volume way up. And so the agenda today is I want to talk about what imposter syndrome looks like and how it can show up and some of the signs, and then the root of it, and then also like why it's common with ADHD. And then we're going to talk about overcoming it because it's something that you can absolutely overcome. You really can, and you can get a lot of movement with it. It's not something that I would say I experience that much anymore. And along with other clients that I have, once you get to the root of it, and there's a belief behind it that I'm going to reveal here in a little bit that's going to explain a lot, and it's going to tell you exactly how to address it. And so you don't have to have imposter syndrome your whole life. You don't. And if you have it, that's okay, and it's actually really normal. So what is it? Now, if we go by the textbook definition of imposter syndrome, they define it as the condition of feeling anxious or not experiencing success internally. Like example of that is like not celebrating successes, right? Constantly looking for what the gap is. And this is despite being high performing in external objective ways, and it results in people, we can feel like a fraud or a phony. We can doubt our abilities. We might think we achieved something because of luck. This was something for me for a long time, where it's like if they really knew me, they wouldn't think as highly of me. I had that belief for so long, and I was scared to be vulnerable. I was scared to get close to people. If they really knew me, I wouldn't be as good as they thought. If or even, I mean, as a coach or someone, I mean, I was, you guys know, we were closing 300 transactions a year, right? And I thought, but if they saw my kitchen, or if they saw how unorganized my house was, I'm on this stage, like I don't have it together, they would just they wouldn't think so highly of me. And it can show up in a lot of ways, where you just feel like, I mean, I used to feel like a sheep. I used to say a sheep in wolf's clothing, is how I described it, as I felt like small and meek, even though my numbers were huge. And so you might experience it in a lot of different ways. If you have success, like you don't deserve it, so 82% of people, this is a statistic, 82% of people experience imposter syndrome on the job with or without ADHD. 82% of people. I don't know what 18% of people are doing, but 82% of people experience it. And so there's a couple of ways that it can show up as well. Like you don't believe your success was connected to your hard work or your intelligence or your creativity. I've had clients like that. They think it's luck. They think it's other people. Instead of saying, okay, I worked really hard for this. I am smart. I am creative. And you might, if I came to you and I say, hey, I achieved this, you might say, oh my gosh, Tyler, that's amazing. It's because you worked really hard. But if it was the exact same scenario, you might not give yourself the same credit. You might spend a lot of time thinking about failures. So you might keep dwelling on what you did wrong rather than what you did right. I mean, anybody resonate with that? You might compare yourself to others, believing they had to have much smaller effort to achieve the same thing as you. You don't celebrate your successes, which I think all of us can do. And you might just think, what's the next thing that needs to be done? And you just, it's like you're not giving yourself self-affirmation, and you doubt it. You might worry about the next deadline, or if you can do it again. I don't know if I can do it again. So why is this common with ADHD? So you've heard me say this, and I like to say this out loud a lot, is that as kids, there's this study they did, a survey, that we get 20,000 more negative messages about our behavior by the age of 8, right? So we're hearing all these negative things about our behavior by the age of 8, like you forgot this, you didn't get your homework in time, you're messy, you're lazy, you're a procrastinator, like all of these things. And the thing is, even if these people in our life are well-meaning, with ADHD, people without ADHD experience what we experience sometimes, right? Everybody's late. everybody forgets stuff, everybody procrastinates, yet the volume's turned up for us. And so when we're in this environment where the average population's what, 3 to 10% has ADHD, so majority don't, and they see the things we do and they say, oh, just do it this way, and this is what I did, or this is what works. But it doesn't work for us because our brain's wired differently, and then we think something's wrong with us, right? Something's wrong with us. Even like, why did that coach is a great coach? Why didn't it work for me? I must not be coachable. You know, that's something I hear all the time in the coaching world. It's like, no, that coach didn't have an ADHD lens. You're extremely coachable, insanely coachable. The coach wasn't doing the right job. You know, and so we get this message, and when we look at imposter syndrome, and I want to type this out. This is the core belief behind imposter syndrome. And I'm going to do a screen share, and I'm going to type this out because I want you to really like remember this. I want you to have a visual. So this is, if you want to beat, that's probably too big. If you want to beat imposter syndrome, this is the core belief you need to address. I am not enough. This is at the root of all of it. This right here, right? I'm not capable. I'm not worthy. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I don't work hard enough. I need to do better. This is at the root of it. And it's like, of course it would be if you're a kid and you're being told constantly 20,000 extra times than your peers, especially if you are undiagnosed, that you're falling short, you're going to grow up with this core belief. Like you just are. I mean, any kid is. And the longer you waited until you get your diagnosis, which most people, especially women, don't get diagnosed until an adult, you're going to be carrying this your whole life, even if it's subconscious, and think you might not be enough. So you might go to, be a perfectionist, overcompensate. Like you're going to go to, you might do it. I mean, I went for achievement to feel enough. When you address this fundamental belief, this is going to be the thing that really can remove your imposter syndrome. Is I am enough. I do work hard. I am good enough. I am worthy. If I can keep this up, and if I choose not to, that's okay. It doesn't reflect my self-worth. So this is really, when we're looking to really improve on imposter syndrome, this is one of the first core things that we look at is, on a scale of 1 to 10, how enough do you feel? Right? 1 being not at all, don't look at me, and 10 being like, I love myself and I'm good enough and I don't need to achieve for my self-worth or my validation. And I'm, look at that and address that. And that's going to, and I'm going to talk to you about how to do that too. And how you can address that. So that, watch for that. I am enoughness, and then we can talk about that a little bit more. So with that, and there's some other things that can come with that, is like if you have ADHD and then you had a co-occurring diagnosis, so that you'll get more negative messages. If you have other mental health stuff, if you have a chronic illness where your executive function is impaired even more, if you're LGBT, if you're a person of color, the intersectionality of different things, you might be treated differently depending on how people view you, or those things. You might get less or more grace, and so that can add layers. And the other piece with this imposter syndrome is what we call cognitive dissonance. And so cognitive dissonance it's a psychological phenomenon. So when you have 2 contradictory beliefs at the same time, and so, for example, and this is why sometimes we stay in this imposter syndrome or this not enough, when the I'm not enoughness hasn't been addressed. So somebody gives you a compliment, right? So cognitive dissonance is you're holding 2 beliefs at the same time, and either you believe the new one, or it feels really uncomfortable and painful, and you stick with the old one because you don't want to reorganize everything. So you get a compliment and somebody says, wow, you did a great job. So either you say, wow, they're right, I am enough, I did do a good job, or that feels conflicting with your core beliefs and you have to make up a story, right? Well, this person's a really positive person and they see the good in everybody. That's why they said that, because it feels too hard to go back and re-examine that core belief that we're not enough. So and then we think, well, once they get to know me or close to me, they'll realize I'm not as good as I think I am. And so when we're looking at imposter syndrome, because that's where our brains can go. Somebody gives us a compliment, and that's notorious for us, for it's hard to believe. So then we create that story instead of saying, wow, you know what? They're right. That was good enough. I did a good job. And so the next time you get a compliment or somebody says something positive, sit with that and take that on if you can, because it's going to start to slowly shift that unconscious belief that you're not enough. Even if you could sit with it for a little bit, it's going to help you be able to do that, instead of create this story like, oh, they're not right, you know. So another example of that, let's say you had a good year, you had a, you know, or something great happens, and so then you accept, wow, I worked hard and I'm talented, I'm good at my job, and I really did achieve this. Or this is what I hear all the time, well, it was lucky this year, or I partnered with a builder, or I had a bunch of referrals from someone else, instead of giving ourselves credit. So it keeps us in that I'm not enough. And with ADHD, the other thing we can do is we can have all or nothing or black and white thinking, right? And that's also common if you have trauma, if you have substance abuse history. I mean, it's a trauma response sometimes. Sometimes it's just neurodivergence, where we put in two categories, where we think we're just not that great, or we think we're amazing. And usually we go in the other one, where it's like the self-esteem stuff. And so by holding two beliefs like, hey, I struggled to get these tasks done and I did this really well, and we hold both at one time, that's going to challenge your brain and start to rewire this, instead of this polarization of I'm never good enough, I'm not doing enough. We want to hold both at the same time and say, you know what, I messed up on these two things and I did really well in these two things, and I'm proud of myself. So some of this is almost like cognitive behavior therapy or deep. I mean, I have the mental health background. I can't help to talk about it, but those are the things that can really help, is just giving yourself credit. Now, the other thing that can be really helpful in this is what I call taking inventory of your beliefs. And this is very significant in this. So I want to give you an example. So let's say, if someone can type in the chat, what's a scenario where you feel like imposter syndrome shows up? Just anybody type in the chat. Give me in a scenario the last time you felt imposter syndrome happen. Just type that in the chat. Okay, getting awards. That's a great one. Okay, so I'm going to do a screen share. So this is what I call, and this is great for not feeling enough too. You know, working with sellers today. Someone asked my informed opinion, receiving compliments, totally. Being a new agent, all that stuff. Okay, so what's really, and this is a template if you want it. I'll just throw it in there. You know, I love templates and spreadsheets. So I'm gonna throw this in here. If you want it. And this is an inventory. And so let's say you're at the award ceremony, you know, and you've gotten some awards. And so what you want to do is you want to do a brain dump without judgment of what are all these beliefs that are tied to your imposter syndrome, right? So it was luck. I'm just going to throw some out here. If they knew me, they wouldn't, you know, think as highly of me. Let's see what else can happen in it at the awards. And I don't think I can do it again. I'm not you know, I'm not let's see, what are some other, give me some other beliefs. I don't know why my brain is freezing. Let's see, anyone could have, oh, that's a good one, anyone could do this. Oops, that's a great one. I never win. Oh, that's really great, because you could go to the award ceremony and not get some. Yeah, I never win, so why is this different? And you could be, you said awards, it could be that you're brand new. I'm brand new. This is too hard. Let's look at these. These are great. I mean, not great that you have them, and it's true. Great to share this. Oh, I'm a top producer, but I don't have money. The car. We want to get this all out here, because what we can do, yeah, comparison, all this stuff. They feel sorry for me. The best thing we can do is we can take these out of the shadows and get them on here and be neutral with this. Like, think if we're just analyzing data and we're just getting a list of all of these thoughts, just capture them. So now we have this, it was luck. If you knew me, they wouldn't think highly. I don't think I repeat this. Anyone can do this. I never win. Brand new, this is too hard. So I've thought all of these, by the way, all of them. And so this, I would assume this is pretty common. So now we want to interrogate reality. What is this is called the 100% true model if you really go into coaching. And so it was luck. Now let's take a scenario where you did close a certain amount of deals and you got an award. Is that true? Was it all luck? Or did you actually, right? No, it's not true. So, and we don't, the thing with affirmation sometimes that doesn't resonate for a lot of us with ADHD is they can be extreme or we don't believe them. And if something doesn't feel authentic, we can kind of shut down. So an affirmation like and it can work, if it works for you, great. But an affirmation like I'm the hardest worker in town and I'm the best real estate, that kind of stuff might feel too inflated or might not feel realistic. And so if you don't feel authentic with your affirmations or the story you're telling yourself, then shift it where it feels more realistic. And so what might be true with this is I worked hard. That's the truth. I have a database of people, you know, and past clients that called me. And maybe some was luck. I had, two lucky closings. Not all of it though. So what we've done is we've taken it out of the black and white, right? Where it's like, oh, it was all luck. Because that's black and white. And we've said, I worked really hard. I have a database of people, I past clients, and I had two lucky closings, but I really had 30. So now we know we've kind of dispelled this belief. So if they knew me, they wouldn't think highly of me. What is actually true? What's actually true is that over 50% of real estate agents have ADHD at least, and they're probably all thinking the same thing. So, but what's actually true? If they knew me, they wouldn't think as highly of me. Well, I'll tell you that if you have ADHD, your empathy is off the charts. You have intuition. You're a really good person with high integrity. You are a hard worker. You're creative. You're honest. There's so many good things. So the truth is, if they knew me, they wouldn't think as highly. If they knew me, they'd probably love me. That's probably the truth because vulnerability, right? If I came on here and I acted like I didn't experience any of these because I was a master versus me saying I've experienced every one of these, which one's going to make you feel more connected to me? If I said I don't experience any of these, I've got it mastered versus, you know what, I've felt every single one of these and I feel it. Which one is more connection? Which one's going to make you want to come on the call? It's me being vulnerable. So what's actually true is if I fully shared myself and was vulnerable, the right people are going to love me. That's true. I mean, right? Like that's true. And maybe if that's too much, it's like maybe what's actually true is I'm too hard on myself. This is another one. And I'm the one who doesn't think as highly of me. And I'm projecting it onto other people. And we can see some files there. Boom, got that. So that's what we're gonna do. I don't think I can repeat this. Well, I did it once. I could do it again. Anyone could do this. No, they didn't. Over 80% of agents don't even make it past the first year. And so this is what we want to do. We want to bring it to the shadows and we want to have a realistic list of is this actually true or not? Is this actually true? I'm a top producer, but I don't have money or a car to show for it. Let's address this one because I've 100% been there. Impulse spending for dopamine, or just like I make a budget and I forget. Like this is all stuff I've experienced. I got a financial coach that helped me. So I don't have money. I'm a top producer and I don't have money or car to show for it. Well, what is the truth? Maybe like I'm a top producer and I didn't learn about money growing up. And I'm learning now and I'm proud of myself. Nobody taught us. We didn't learn in school. So this is what this does. It takes the shame out of this, which is really like important for ADHD because we have a lot of it. So this belief inventory list is really helpful. Same thing if you get a block. I use this with coaching clients when there's a block around money and wealth, or like extreme anxiety. And so we might do a belief inventory list on the views of money, like without judging, right? Money is bad. That's a common one. I don't want to be greedy. So this is just, if you want this tool, you can use this for a lot, but it's what it is you want to take all these thoughts that we try to hide and not come out, and we want to put them all in the light, and we want to just look at them without judgment. So I'm going to throw this in this inventory list. If you want the template, again, it's just a simple template, but it's a cool thing to do. If you find yourself constantly ruminating or having negative thoughts, it's like you have the dream where the monster's chasing you and then like you're always running and then one day you turn around, you face the monster and it's not a big of a deal. Like that's what this is because they're just their thoughts. So interrogating reality is really important. Now, the next thing that we want to do to overcome imposter syndrome is identify it. So if we have all these thoughts, like we just did the inventory list, one, you could say these are all true, or you could say, you know what, I wonder if this is imposter syndrome. So the second that you name it and you label it, it makes it where the thoughts aren't 100% true. Some of you guys know I'm diagnosed with OCD, and this was a game changer to actually get the diagnosis because I'd have repetitive thoughts over and over again about if I don't do this, this happens, or if I don't do this. So I would say I probably might not even meet the criteria. I mean, I'm on medication. I'm just blown away with where my OCD is at because it used to be debilitating, and now it's kind of annoying, but it's not debilitating. So what happened with that, and you can use this to negative thoughts or things you don't want, is when those thoughts came up, if you don't do this, this is going to happen. It's like, oh, that's not a reality. That's an OCD thought. So instead of believing that that thought is true, you get to label it and say, "Ooh," so you observe it at this point instead of taking it on and feeling it. And so that's what I learned to do is to discern between an OCD thought and a real thought. And then when that thought says, if you don't do this, this is going to happen. When you do the thing and then the thing doesn't happen, it affirms it, right? So if you check a doorknob 5 times so you don't crash your, and that wasn't mine, but here's an example. If I check a doorknob 5 times, I won't crash my car to work. So I check the doorknob and I don't crash my car to work. Well, then it affirms that that doorknob thing worked, right? But if I say this is an OCD thought and I'm not going to check the doorknob, and then I go and I don't crash my car, it affirms that I don't need to do that thing to keep myself safe, if that makes sense. I know we have some people on OCD here, so that's why I went into that for a second. But this tactic to just say, oh, this thought is through imposter syndrome. So this might not be 100% true. It takes the power of it on it. So you don't like somebody said I shouldn't be running my business on versus superstition. I mean, I don't know. You can do whatever you want. So just understanding and labeling it that it might be imposter syndrome versus it being true that you're really not good enough already is a huge thing. Now, the other thing we want to do is assess our skill gaps versus our emotional reactions. So we could have a skill gap, right? It could be that you had a bunch of sales and there was a couple elements that won't be there next time. So instead of saying, man, I can't do this, I can't repeat it, it's like, oh, what is the gap? What would it look like for me to do it again? And this is that concept of focusing on what you do want versus what you don't want. And this is huge too. This is just so much mental health comes in, but we want to focus on what we do want versus what we don't want. And that's one of it. And so if you're thinking, okay, maybe I can't do this again, or maybe it was luck. It's like, well, I know what it feels like. And so when I really look at the scenario of next year, what do I need to make it happen again? What would that look like? What would it be to exceed that next year? So that's another one. And then if you identify what the gap is, then you just make a plan to close the gap. And what you're going to realize as we go through these is we're pulling out the judgment and we're really in emotion, really, and we're looking at from a logical standpoint. And this is kind of cognitive behavioral therapy and DBT, and we're pulling out the emotional reaction, and we're just interrogating reality and looking at it from a factual standpoint. So assess the skill gap. Is there really a gap here? Okay, let's close it. That's fine. What would that look like? What's the plan? Versus, oh gosh, I can't do it. Another one, and this is one a therapist taught me that I love. It's called the OOPS technique. So the other thing is when you're catching these thoughts, and this goes for negative thoughts or anything like that. Let's say having a negative thought like I'm not good enough, and then I say like, oh man, there's that negative thought again. I'm being negative. What that does, you're kind of slapping your wrist for recognizing a negative thought, and then the brain isn't going to want to recognize it, and it keeps it under the surface. Because it's like a little kid. If a little kid said, hey, I found this rock, and it's like, oh, don't pick up a rock again. Why'd you do that? The kid's not going to bring you a rock again. So one of the core things is to, like when you recognize imposter syndrome, when you recognize a negative belief, is to actually like reward yourself for it and praise yourself like, oh, good job catching that. So if a kid brings you a rock and it's in the house or something and it should be over, and you say, oh, thank you so much for picking that up. We don't need that. And it brings it to the light and you can actually address it, because if they're all subconscious because you've been slapping yourself on the wrist over and over again for picking up on negative thoughts, your brain's going to say, oh, we're not going to bring that to your attention. And so one thing that I love is called the oops technique. And so let's say I have, so it's a way, like, let's say I had a negative thought or imposter syndrome or something, and the thought comes in and I start to believe, and I go, oops, like it's oops, oops, oops. There it is. Oh, good job catching that. And then I move on, right? And I don't take it on. And clients don't take it on. And so you're still recognizing it's not something you want, but you're not punishing yourself for being negative, because that doesn't work. We want to praise yourself and your brain for bringing it to light. And then pretty soon your brain's going to say, ooh, we get praise and a little bit of dopamine every time we catch a negative thought and don't take it on. This is fun. Let's bring it all to light. And then now we're not going to take that stuff on. And it's pretty amazing. And then, so this is another one, practice receiving compliments. And we'll do questions. I'm going to go probably 5 or 10 minutes because this is an important one. So practice receiving compliments. So I want you to think about this. I'm just going to say somebody's name that I see, Melissa. So let's say it's Melissa's birthday and I went and I picked out a gift for her. Okay. And I picked out this, I know Melissa, I'm just making out, I know Melissa loves plants. And I went and I bought this beautiful rare plant that was $200. That's really rare, that I got shipped in from, I don't know, the West Coast. And I was so excited about it. And I picked this beautiful bow on the outside for her. And I found this card that was like $13 with the pop out and the 3D and everything. And I was so excited. I wrote this really heartfelt message. And I went and I brought it to her. I said, oh my gosh, I brought you this. Like, here's your gift. Here's your happy birthday. And she said, no, I can't take it. And I'm like, well, no, look, oh no, I can't take that gift. And it's like, well, no, here's your card. No, that's no, you're so nice, but no, thank you. And then she walked away and she left. How would that make me feel? Pretty terrible, right? So think about this. When someone gives you a compliment, they have picked out this compliment for you. Um, and they've picked it out and they've thought about it and they've took the effort to literally say it out loud and tell you. So when someone tells you something good, accept that gift, because they want to feel good too, right? So if and on the flip side, I brought this plant, and this helped me because I had so much trouble with this. And these are all things people have shared or taught. Kristen Sapp Cole actually taught me this. If you don't, she's within the KW ecosystem, a trainer. And so this finally helped me and other clients receive compliments. So if I brought that plant to Melissa and she said, oh my gosh, like that is so nice. That's a plant that's so rare. And look at this beautiful card. Let me, oh my gosh, this is gorgeous. Thank you so much. How would that make me feel? Right? As like the gift giver. So when somebody gives you a compliment, and they say, hey, you did a great job, then you're gonna say, oh my gosh, thank you so much for saying that. Like, that's really sweet. And that's so nice of you to reach out. And so I think sometimes we don't even know how to receive compliments. Like, we've never been taught. And so I want you to practice receiving compliments as a gift that someone picked out for you. And by receiving it, you're going to help them feel better. And then we're going to start to internalize this, and start to be okay with the compliment. So that's what I would say. Practice receiving compliments, practice thanking the person, practice receiving the gifts. It will change a lot of things for you. Another thing with imposter syndrome is to get out of your head and into your body. We have 10 times the amount of thoughts as someone without ADHD. We like to ruminate, a lot of us. We can have circling thoughts. If you have autism, if you have OCD, if you have PTSD, like, it can add another layer. Just having ADHD, we can ruminate. And so there are times where we're not going to think, somebody said ruminating is my superpower. We're not going to think our way out of imposter syndrome or rumination. There are times like that. So get in your body, get in your heart, go for a walk, go outside, hug somebody, dance. Sometimes, like, I don't know if you're like me, because again, I've got OCD too, and autism, but it's like there's a puzzle in my head I keep trying to solve with rumination, but it never solves it. And when I realize I'm in that, it's when I got to get in my body. It's like a puzzle I'm never going to solve, and I'm just going to sit there and ruminate. And rumination and negative thoughts actually create cortisol, stress hormone, which creates dopamine, which we're lower in. So we can actually get addicted to some of these things too. And so this is where being aware of your thoughts and having discernment of, is this a helpful thing? Because we have amazing ideas and we do process fast. So sometimes it's good to be in our thoughts and process, but other times we're just in a pattern that's not really helpful. And having discernment on those two is what's going to take you to the next level. Next thing, self-compassion. So think about if does anybody have kids, have nieces and nephews, was a kid at some point, right? All of us. And so if you're not sure what to do, think about your kid. Like if your kid self came up and said, man, I don't think I can maintain this. I think I achieved this because it was luck. I don't think I can do this again. What would you say to them? You wouldn't say, yeah, you're right. Right? You would say, no, you're strong, you're independent, you're empowered. So that's a really great way to reframe stuff when you get stuck, is to think of a kid, yourself, your nieces and nephews, yourself as a teen. How would you speak to that kid? That can be so empowering, because if shaming yourself and beating yourself up and negative thinking worked, it would have worked by now. So try something else. If you're hard on yourself, guess what? It would have worked. If you're hard on yourself and you're not where you want to be, then guess what? If it worked, it would have worked by now. So it hasn't. So it's time to have more compassion for yourself, and speak to yourself a different way, because you're going to give yourself more energy, right? If I say, no, you got this. You can totally do this again, Tyler. You're going to do more because you did already. You're going to probably do even more. Where's that going to take my energy? Up or down? Right? Boom, let's go, baby, let's go. But if I say, man, yeah, this might have been luck, I don't know if you're going to be able to do this again, or yeah, you're really not good. That's what our thoughts do, right? If a friend said that to you, I'd want to punch that friend in the face. I'd say, get away from Leslie. Like, no, leave Diana alone. You're a jerk. But we do it to ourselves. So have compassion with yourself. And then also keep failure in perspective. This is Gary Keller, and this is an all brokerage call, but this is just my training, right? Gary Keller, I love that. He said, there's no such thing as failure. You either win or you learn something. So you can't grow or learn or make progress without stretching yourself, without failing. And a lot of us are really afraid of failure. And there was a huge mastermind that we were at with Gary Keller, and it was like the top 100 agents in the country. I think it was not quite 10 years ago. And they asked what the biggest advice he had for all of us. And these are the top agents in the world. And he said, I want you guys to fail faster, fail faster, fail faster. So imposter syndrome can also stop us from wanting to make a mistake or failing, and that actually slows our growth. And then a couple more things: compare yourself to you in the past. And we're going to send the notes out. Compare yourself to you in the past, not others around you. You don't know what's going on in their inner world. I've been around people, high performers, their marriage is terrible or falling apart, or their health, they have so much stress it's not even worth it, but they have the flashy car. Like, you don't know what the reality is. And also, maybe they had more advantages. Maybe they had more privilege in certain ways. Maybe they were taught about money. Maybe, we just don't know. And so when you're comparing your story, as they say, don't compare your insides to other people's outsides. It's not good. But if you compare yourself, like compare where you were 5 years ago, or 2 years ago, or 1 year ago, or even 6 months ago, and look for the stuff you're doing better or that you're proud of for yourself, that can be huge. Another thing is ask people that you trust. So make it a practice of periodically getting feedback from the people you trust and respect. And again, we're practicing that compliments. And so if you think, man, I'm really not that professional, I'm not a good agent, say, hey, people around you, would you mind how, on a scale of 1 to 10, how professional do you think I am? Or how articulate am I? Or how emotionally intelligent am I? So sometimes we can have trouble seeing ourselves accurately with neurodivergence. And so asking people that you trust, that are going to tell you the truth, can be really, really helpful. And then also, if you get stuck, and this is one of my favorite things here, this is the last one of this. If you get stuck, curiosity over judgment is going to change your flippin' life. Okay, be curious. Don't be judgmental. Be curious. So again, harshness is not a solution. Harshness is going to shut down everything, and it's going to keep prolonging solutions. Because let's say you, as imposter syndrome, you think, again, we'll use that. And now, like that example of, it's like, well, this was just luck, it's just luck. I'm not gonna be able to do it again. So that's a judgment. But if you say, okay, so there's some things that went really right this year, let me look at what those were. and how do I replicate those? And what am I afraid of that won't happen next year that I think is luck? And how, and is that true, right? We go into curiosity because when you do judgment, you shut everything down and you can't diagnose, you can't look at data, anything. You just stop all of your growth when you judge yourself on everything. Like you just stop it. But when you get curious and you look for information, you look for patterns and you look for data and you look for the truth, that's when you keep progressing. And so sometimes we think judgment or harshness or pain or anything is going to help us move forward, or we're going to be disciplined and all this stuff. No, it's going to keep you where you're at. Like it will. I mean, yeah, being harsh might create cortisol, which creates dopamine. So maybe it creates some dopamine and some extra fuel. And maybe you've survived on that and gotten to this point in your career by using that sometimes. And like, that's not a very fun career. If your whole career and your activities and your everything is built on beating yourself up to create cortisol and stress hormones, create dopamine, you might want to think about doing that differently, because that's not a very fun way to do it. Whereas if you were being curious and learning and finding different techniques and being compassionate with yourself and growing and looking at this like a puzzle and a challenge, that's a very different way of doing. And how do I help people? It's a completely different way of running your career. The numbers might look the same, or you probably do more the second way, and it's just a whole different way of living, instead of just depressing. And so that's a curiosity over judgment, and be compassionate with yourself. So imposter syndrome, to kind of go back through, really at the core of it that I've seen and with a lot of clients, the core of imposter syndrome is not believing in yourself, not feeling enough, not feeling capable, doubting yourself, which makes 100% sense with the background that a lot of us have. And this is where, as an adult, we're going to unpack that and rewire how we see ourselves to overcome that imposter syndrome. And sometimes just doing things, right? Anyways, do it anyways. It's going to build confidence. Every time that you do something that's a challenge, it's going to build confidence, it's going to teach you that you can do that. So yeah, so imposter syndrome, fraud, phony, doubting your abilities, a lot of that comes back to not enoughness and feeling like we have to hide parts of ourselves. And also that's common if you didn't get diagnosed because you felt like you had to mask your symptoms, right? If you were hyperactive, you had to sit still. And so you had all this anxiety bottled up, and you thought, if I completely am myself, I'm going to get in trouble. I'm going to get reprimanded. I'm going to be told, why are you crazy? Why are you all over the place? So there is an element of a lot of us hiding parts of ourselves, or thinking that we should, because we had to mask our symptoms because there wasn't a name for it. And we were in an environment where it wasn't conducive. It wasn't built for ADHD. It was built for non-ADHD brains, which are not as stimulated as ours and not as active. And our brains are built for a different wiring system. We're built to go hunt lions and do well under stress and have creative ideas and inventors and performers and entrepreneurs. That's what we're wired for. So in school, a lot of us can struggle because we're not supposed to sit at a desk for hours and hours and hours, and our brain goes like this and it's all wacky, and then we're shot by the end of the day. We're just over it. So know that some of this too is just conditioning, and as an adult you get to uncondition that. So that is imposter syndrome. So just as a recap, work on accepting compliments, recognize where the conditioning's from and name it instead of thinking these things are true. Um, Interrogate reality, that limiting belief inventory list, assess any skill gaps. So if there is something you need to work on, make a plan instead of just thinking you're not good enough. Get out of your head into your body. If you find yourself ruminating, practice that self-compassion and kind of addressing yourself almost as if it was a kid. Understand failure is necessary. The faster you fail, the faster you learn. The faster you learn, the higher you go with what your goals are. So failure is a really good thing. Fail faster. Compare yourself to you in the past. Ask people you trust for feedback, and then focus on curiosity over judgment. So those are my top tips that I've seen work really well.